The murder of Naomi Irion in March 2022 represents one of the most shocking and senseless crimes to occur in rural Nevada in recent years. The case of the 18-year-old South African exchange student who was abducted and killed while waiting for a shuttle to work captured national attention and highlighted critical issues about public safety, the vulnerability of young people, and the importance of community vigilance in solving crimes. And modern investigative methods can solve even the most complex cases. Naomi Irion was born on September 15, 2003, in South Africa, where she spent her early childhood before her family immigrated to the United States. The Irion family settled in Fernley, Nevada, a small city in Lyon County, with a population of approximately 20,000 people, located about 30 miles east of Reno. Naomi was described by those who knew her as a bright, ambitious, and kind-hearted young woman, with her whole life ahead of her. At 18 years old, she had recently graduated from high school and was working to save money for college while living with her family. She was known for her warm personality, her love of animals, and her close relationship with her family, particularly her brother Casey, who would later become instrumental in the search efforts following her disappearance. Standing about 5'2", tall with blonde hair and blue eyes, Naomi was easily recognizable to those in her small community. She was employed at a Walmart distribution center in Fernley, a job that required her to commute daily from her home. Like many young people in rural areas, Naomi relied on a combination of personal transportation and a company shuttle service to get to and from work. The Irion family had worked hard to build a life in America, and Naomi represented the hopes and dreams that many immigrant families have for their children. She was planning to attend college and had expressed interest in pursuing a career that would allow her to help others. Her family described her as someone who always put others before herself and who had a natural ability to make people feel comfortable and welcome. Naomi's daily routine was fairly predictable, which would later prove significant in the investigation. She would drive her own vehicle to a park and ride location near her home, where she would catch a shuttle provided by her employer to take her to the Walmart distribution center. This routine, while convenient and cost-effective, would ultimately put her in the wrong place at the wrong time on a fateful March morning in 2022. Saturday, March 12, 2022, began as what appeared to be a routine day for Naomi Irion. She was scheduled to work her regular shift at the Walmart distribution center and followed her usual morning routine. At approximately 5 a.m., Naomi left her family's home in Fernley and drove her silver Honda CR-V to the Walmart parking lot on West Main Street, where she regularly parked to catch the employee shuttle. The parking lot served as an unofficial park-and-ride location for Walmart employees, providing a convenient meeting point for the company shuttle service. It was a location that Naomi and other employees used regularly, and it was generally considered safe due to its visibility and regular use by workers and customers. Naomi arrived at the parking lot around 5:10 a.m. and parked her Honda CR-V in her usual spot. Security camera footage would later show that she remained in her vehicle, as was her custom, waiting for the shuttle to arrive. The shuttle was scheduled to pick up employees at 5:15 a.m. for the early shift that began at 6 a.m. At approximately 5:24 a.m., surveillance cameras captured what would become the crucial evidence in the case. A man approached Naomi's vehicle. The footage showed the individual walking up to the driver's side of her Honda CR-V and appearing to engage with her through the window. Within moments, the situation escalated dramatically. The surveillance footage revealed that the man forced his way into Naomi's vehicle, getting into the driver's seat while Naomi was moved to the passenger side. The entire encounter lasted only a few minutes, but it represented the beginning of a nightmare that would captivate the attention of law enforcement agencies across Nevada and ultimately the entire nation. At 5:25 a.m., Naomi's Honda CR-V was seen, leaving the Walmart parking lot with the unknown man driving and Naomi visible in the passenger seat. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Naomi alive, though the vehicle would continue to be tracked through various surveillance systems as it traveled away from Fernley. When the Walmart shuttle arrived at 5:15 a.m. and Naomi was not there to board it, initial concern was minimal. Employees occasionally missed the shuttle due to various reasons, and it was not immediately seen as cause for alarm. However, when Naomi failed to arrive at work and did not respond to calls or text messages, concern began to grow among her coworkers and supervisors. When Naomi failed to show up for work and could not be reached by phone, her family was contacted. The Irion family immediately knew something was wrong, as Naomi was extremely reliable and always communicated her whereabouts. She had never simply failed to show up for work without explanation, and her failure to answer her phone was completely out of character. By mid-morning on March 12th, Naomi's family contacted the Lyon County Sheriff's Office to report her missing. Initially, as is often the case with missing adult reports, there was some hesitation to immediately launch a full-scale investigation. Adults have the right to leave voluntarily, and law enforcement agencies receive numerous missing persons reports that resolve themselves within hours. However, several factors quickly elevated this case beyond a routine missing person report. First, Naomi's family was adamant that her disappearance was completely out of character, and that she would never leave voluntarily without contacting them. Second, her vehicle was missing along with her, suggesting that this was not a case of someone simply choosing to disappear. Third, the circumstances of her scheduled work shift made voluntary departure highly unlikely. The Lyon County Sheriff's Office began their investigation by interviewing family members, friends, and co-workers to establish Naomi's routine, her state of mind, and any potential threats or concerns in her life. These interviews consistently painted a picture of a young woman who was happy, stable, and had no reason to disappear voluntarily. Investigators also began checking local hospitals, jails, and other locations where Naomi might have ended up due to an accident or other emergency. They issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, alert for Naomi and her vehicle, providing the description and license plate number to law enforcement agencies throughout Nevada and neighboring states. The breakthrough in the initial investigation came when investigators accessed the surveillance camera footage from the Walmart parking lot. The footage clearly showed Naomi's abduction, transforming the case from a missing person investigation into a kidnapping case with potential federal implications. The FBI was contacted and began assisting with the investigation, bringing additional resources and expertise to the case. The involvement of federal authorities was crucial, given the likelihood that the perpetrator might cross state lines and the potential for the case to involve federal crimes such as kidnapping. Once the surveillance footage confirmed that Naomi had been abducted, a massive search effort was launched involving multiple law enforcement agencies, volunteer organizations, and community members. The search was coordinated by the Lyon County Sheriff's Office but included participation from the FBI Nevada Highway Patrol, Washoe County Sheriff's Office, Carson City, Sheriff's Office search and rescue organizations, volunteer civilian search teams. The initial focus of the search was on tracking the movements of Naomi's Honda CR-V after it left the Walmart parking lot. Investigators began the painstaking process of reviewing surveillance footage from businesses, traffic cameras, and private security systems along potential routes that the vehicle might have taken. This effort was complicated by the rural nature of much of the area surrounding Fernley. While the main highways were well covered by surveillance systems, there were numerous backroads and rural areas where the vehicle could have traveled without being captured on camera. The search effort was also hampered by the vast amount of terrain that needed to be covered. The area around Fernley includes desert, mountains, and numerous remote locations where someone could potentially hide a vehicle or dispose of evidence. Search teams used helicopters, drones, all-terrain vehicles, and volunteers on foot to cover as much ground as possible. Naomi's brother Casey became a particularly visible advocate for the search effort, using social media and traditional media to keep the case in the public eye and to coordinate volunteer search efforts. His tireless advocacy helped ensure that the case received continued attention and that volunteers remained engaged in the search effort, even as days turned into weeks. The family also offered a reward for information leading to Naomi's safe return, which was eventually increased to $10,000 as the search continued. This reward helped generate tips and leads, though most would ultimately prove to be false or unproductive. The breakthrough in the Naomi Irion case came through the meticulous analysis of surveillance footage and the use of modern investigative techniques. Investigators spent countless hours reviewing footage from the initial abduction and tracing the movements of Naomi's Honda CR-V as it traveled away from the Walmart parking lot. The surveillance analysis revealed several crucial pieces of information. Investigators were able to track the Honda CR-V as it traveled east from Fernley on Interstate 80, then south on various rural roads toward the desert areas of Lyon County. The footage allowed investigators to establish a precise timeline of the vehicle's movements, which would later prove crucial in establishing the perpetrator's actions and potential locations where evidence might be found. Enhanced analysis of the surveillance footage provided investigators with a clearer image of the suspect, including details about his clothing, physical appearance, and behavior. Perhaps most importantly, the surveillance analysis eventually led investigators to footage showing the Honda CR-V in areas where it had not been previously spotted, helping to narrow down the search area. The process of analyzing surveillance footage was enormously time-consuming and required coordination between multiple agencies and private businesses. Investigators had to contact dozens of businesses and government agencies to request access to their surveillance systems, then review hundreds of hours of footage to find relevant images. This work was complicated by the fact that many surveillance systems have limited storage capacity and routinely delete old footage. Investigators had to move quickly to preserve potentially relevant footage before it was automatically deleted. The analysis also involved the use of advanced technology to enhance image quality and extract maximum information from sometimes grainy or poorly lit footage. The FBI's technical resources were particularly valuable in this aspect of the investigation. On March 29, 2022, 17 days after Naomi's disappearance, the investigation took a tragic turn when her remains were discovered in a remote area of Lyon County. The discovery came as a result of the extensive search effort and the information gathered through surveillance analysis. Search teams had been focusing their efforts on areas identified through the tracking of Naomi's vehicle and analysis of cell phone data. The remote location where her remains were found was in a desert area approximately 20 miles from where she was abducted, in terrain that would have been difficult to search without specific information about where to look. The discovery was made by volunteer searchers working in coordination with law enforcement. The area had been identified as a potential location based on the surveillance footage showing the approximate route taken by her vehicle and analysis of other evidence gathered during the investigation. Along with Naomi's remains, investigators also discovered her Honda CR-V, which had been abandoned in the same general area. The vehicle provided additional evidence that would prove crucial in identifying and prosecuting her killer. The location where Naomi's body and vehicle were found was extremely remote, accessible only by dirt roads, and located far from any populated areas. This isolation suggested that the perpetrator was familiar with the area and had specifically chosen this location to avoid detection. The medical examiner's office was called to the scene to process the remains and the vehicle. The examination would later reveal that Naomi had died from gunshot wounds, confirming that this was indeed a homicide case. The discovery of Naomi's remains brought a tragic end to the family's hope that she might still be found alive, but it also provided investigators with crucial evidence that would help them identify and prosecute her killer. The investigation eventually led to the identification of Troy Driver, a 41-year-old man with a criminal history, as the primary suspect in Naomi's murder. Driver's identification as a suspect came through a combination of surveillance footage analysis, physical evidence found at the crime scene, and investigative work by law enforcement agencies. Troy Driver was not a complete stranger to law enforcement. He had a criminal history that included previous arrests for various offenses, though nothing that would have predicted the violence of his attack on Naomi. He lived in the Fernley area and was familiar with the locations involved in the crime. The evidence linking Driver to the crime included enhanced analysis of the surveillance footage from the Walmart parking lot and other locations provided images that were consistent with Driver's appearance and clothing. DNA evidence and other physical evidence found at the crime scene and in Naomi's vehicle linked Driver to the crime. Analysis of cell phone data and other digital evidence placed Driver in the area at the time of the abduction and murder. Investigators interviewed numerous witnesses who provided information that corroborated Driver's involvement in the crime. The investigation revealed that Driver's attack on Naomi appeared to be a crime of opportunity, rather than a targeted attack. There was no evidence that he had any prior connection to Naomi, or that he had been specifically planning to harm her. Instead, the evidence suggested that he encountered Naomi by chance while she was waiting for her work shuttle and made the spontaneous decision to abduct her. This randomness made the crime even more disturbing, as it highlighted the vulnerability that exists in everyday situations that most people would consider relatively safe. Troy Driver was arrested on May 10, 2022, nearly 2 months after Naomi's disappearance. The arrest came after investigators had gathered sufficient evidence to support charges and had obtained the necessary warrants. Driver was initially charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and the first-degree destruction of evidence. The charges reflected the severity of the crime and the evidence gathered by investigators. The first-degree murder charge indicated that prosecutors believed the killing was premeditated or occurred during the commission of another felony, kidnapping. The legal proceedings in the case were closely watched by the local community and received significant media attention. The case highlighted issues of public safety and random violence that resonated with people throughout Nevada and beyond. Driver's defense team argued various strategies, but the evidence against him was substantial and included multiple forms of physical and circumstantial evidence that placed him at the scene of the crime and connected him to Naomi's murder. The prosecution, led by the Lyon County District Attorney's Office, presented a comprehensive case that included surveillance footage showing the abduction DNA evidence linking driver to the crime cell phone data, placing him at relevant locations expert, testimony about the evidence, testimony from law enforcement officers involved in the investigation. Troy Driver's trial began in 2023 and lasted several weeks. The prosecution presented a detailed case that walked the jury through the evidence linking driver to Naomi's abduction and murder. Key elements of the prosecution's case included: prosecutors showed the jury enhanced surveillance footage from the Walmart parking lot that captured Naomi's abduction. Additional footage traced the movements of her Honda CR-V as it traveled toward the remote area where her body was eventually found. The prosecution presented DNA evidence found in Naomi's vehicle and at the crime scene that matched driver's DNA profile. This evidence was particularly compelling because it directly linked driver to the locations where the crimes occurred. Cell phone data and other digital evidence showed driver's movements on the day of the crime, corroborating the timeline established through other evidence. Various experts testified about the evidence, including forensic specialists, medical examiners, and law enforcement investigators, who explained how the evidence connected driver to the crime. The defense attempted to challenge various aspects of the prosecution's case, but the weight of the evidence was substantial. The surveillance footage in particular was devastating to the defense, as it clearly showed the abduction taking place and provided a visual record of the crime. On date, the jury found Troy Driver guilty on all charges. The conviction represented a significant victory for the prosecution and provided a measure of justice for Naomi's family and the community that had been so deeply affected by her murder. Following his conviction, Troy Driver was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence reflected the severity of his crimes and ensured that he would never again have the opportunity to harm another innocent person. The sentencing hearing was an emotional event, with members of Naomi's family providing victim impact statements that described the devastating effect her murder had on their lives. Naomi's brother Casey spoke eloquently about his sister's life and the loss that her family continues to experience. The case had a significant impact on the local community and beyond. The random nature of Naomi's abduction and murder led to increased awareness about personal safety, particularly for young people in situations that might appear safe but actually present risks. The case demonstrated the importance of quickly accessing surveillance footage and the value of community involvement in search efforts. Naomi's family, particularly her brother Casey, became advocates for victim rights and public safety, using their platform to help prevent similar crimes. The case showcased how modern investigative techniques, including surveillance analysis and digital evidence, can be crucial in solving complex crimes. The murder of Naomi Irion offers several important lessons about personal safety, criminal investigation, and community response to violent crime. The case highlights the importance of remaining vigilant even in seemingly safe situations. Naomi was abducted from a well-lit, frequently used parking lot during early morning hours, demonstrating that danger can exist even in locations that appear secure. The investigation was significantly aided by the extensive surveillance footage available from various sources. This highlights the importance of security cameras in both preventing and solving crimes. The massive volunteer search effort and community support demonstrated how citizen involvement can be crucial in criminal investigations, though it must be coordinated with law enforcement efforts. The quick recognition that Naomi's disappearance was suspicious and the immediate launch of an investigation likely prevented the loss of crucial evidence and may have aided in the eventual resolution of the case. The tireless efforts of Naomi's family, particularly her brother Casey, helped keep the case in the public eye and demonstrated the important role that families can play in seeking justice for victims. the murder of Naomi Irion continues to have lasting effects on her family, community, and the broader conversation about public safety in America. Her case serves as a reminder of the random violence that can affect anyone, anywhere, and the importance of remaining vigilant while also living our lives. The Irion family has worked to ensure that Naomi's memory is honored through various charitable efforts and advocacy work. They have used their platform to promote awareness about personal safety and to support other families who have experienced similar tragedies. The case also contributed to ongoing discussions about how communities can better protect their residents, particularly young people who may be vulnerable to predators. It highlighted the importance of well-lit, monitored areas for activities like waiting for transportation and the value of community awareness programs. Law enforcement agencies have used the case as a training example, demonstrating how modern, investigative techniques can be effectively combined with traditional police work and community involvement to solve even the most challenging cases. The murder of Naomi Christine Irion represents a tragedy that touched the hearts of people far beyond her immediate community. Her senseless death at the hands of a stranger serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that can lurk in everyday situations and the importance of remaining vigilant while going about our daily lives. However, Naomi's case also demonstrates the power of determined family members, dedicated law enforcement officers, and an engaged community working together to seek justice. The successful investigation and prosecution of Troy Driver showed that even the most challenging cases can be solved when all available resources are brought to bear and when people refuse to give up in the pursuit of truth and justice. The extensive use of surveillance footage in solving this case points to the increasing importance of technology in modern criminal investigations. The ability to track the movements of Naomi's vehicle and ultimately identify her killer through digital evidence represents a significant advancement in investigative capabilities. Perhaps most importantly, Naomi's story serves as a reminder that, behind every crime statistic, is a real person with family, friends, dreams, and potential. Naomi Irion was just beginning her adult life when it was cut short by a senseless act of violence. Her memory lives on through the advocacy work of her family and the changes in awareness and procedures that have resulted from her case. The case of Naomi Irion will likely be studied by law enforcement professionals, legal scholars, and criminologists for years to come as an example of how modern investigative techniques can be effectively used to solve violent crimes. More importantly, her story serves as a lasting reminder of the importance of community vigilance, family advocacy, and the never-ending pursuit of justice for victims of violent crime. While nothing can bring Naomi back or fully heal the wounds inflicted on her family and community, the successful prosecution of her killer provides a measure of justice and demonstrates that even in our complex and sometimes dangerous world, determined people working together can still achieve accountability for those who commit terrible crimes against innocent victims. This account is based on court records, police reports, media coverage, and public statements made during the investigation and trial.